The Marching Roundtable is proud to be an official media partner of Drum Corps International.
Thanks for coming to the Marching Roundtable YouTube channel, sharing great information to help you succeed in all the marching arts. While you're here, we hope you'll subscribe. Hi, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts and the host of the Marching Roundtable podcast. On this series, we talk with a private lesson teacher and performer for each instrument to tell you what you need to know to be more effective in working with those students. We hope you enjoy the series.
One thing that's going to help your students play with a more mature tone, and this is the only way I've ever been able to convince students to buy into this. It's not a because I said so. Students know that they should play on the tip of the reed, but it comes across as a because I said so. But here's why. Okay, if I am crowing, that's the foundation of my tone when I have so much reed in and it's not being dampened, versus this one clean, organized sound. And so I'll demonstrate to students, here, listen what that sounds like on the oboe. So not in a full crow position, but if I take a lot of reed and if I go that direction, I literally can't control. I can't cushion, I can't dampen at all. Everything's just vibrating freely with no bumper buddies, no guardrails. But if I stay with the reed on rather than in, then I can really round out the sound and cushion it more. This could be a good quick fix if contest is just around the corner. No one's gonna have a miraculous improvement and playing down to pitch. The reed that student's playing on is probably their favorite. So if it's an issue of sharpness, then you could have some of these tuning rings on hand to just save the day. But other than that, the skill that's needed to resolve the pitch issues is all here. So what I'm doing is I'm manipulating rolling, always with the lip, so I'm never frozen and moving without. Rolling the reed with the lip, in or out. That's one thing that's happening. Adjusting my air speed. We all know air is pitch, so more air, higher pitch. Slower air, lower pitch. And voicing as well. Ooh for low, E for high. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. So when we combine all those things, we have what we need to be able to adjust pitch.
This podcast is sponsored by FJM, Fred J. Miller Incorporated, found at fjminc.com. Hey everybody, it's Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts, and we are talking about oboe today, and I have a real ringer on the line. Dr. Abby Yeakle Held is with me. How are you, Dr. Held?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I haven't seen you in a few years since we did some work together about oboe before, so how are things going?
Things are going great. I'm in a new position since last time we talked. I'm at Ohio State. It's my 4th year there now. And I'm the oboe professor. So, I'm teaching everything from undergraduate oboe through doctoral. Also coaching chamber music and teaching woodwind literature, woodwind pedagogy, things like that. So right up my alley.
Sounds wonderful. And I sort of jumped ahead there. So how long have you been teaching oboe?
Gosh, teaching oboe, I would say I started teaching in my undergrad. Even though I'm teaching at the university level, I've always known that I wanted to teach. And so during my undergrad, I was a music ed student because I wanted to learn about the art of teaching and pedagogy and, how to explain things well to students and how best to learn. So that was always my goal. So I started teaching in my undergraduate studies. My first studio was a studio of 8 during my Bachelor of Music Education at Baylor University. And I continued with private studios and teaching all throughout my educational career. And now I'm here.
Well, the Ohio State University is a very prestigious place to be, so congratulations. And I know the students are very lucky to have you there, helping them with all those things that you're teaching. So here's our setup, everybody. I am a band director or an instructor of some sort standing in front of an ensemble, and there are some students with oboes. And so there are things that I think if I knew more about the instrument or certain things I knew would help me be more effective with those students. So, Dr. Held, that's why I asked you here today, and I'm interested to see, where would you like to start? What's the first thing you would want me to know about oboe?
The first thing I want you to know is that the oboe is not the oboe. The reed is the oboe. And here's what I mean by that. And certainly you know where this is going. This is not really an instrument so much as it is something that's changing the pitch of the reed, which the reed is then the instrument. And a lot of what I want to talk to you about today is things I've learned actually from my brass colleagues. And so if you're a brass player, hopefully a lot of this resonates with you. But I think the first and most important thing I want to focus on in today's discussion is talking about the reed and the importance of how everything comes back to the reed. So there's a lot you can learn about your student, what they're up against, what they're dealing with, and by looking at their reed or asking them to do certain things on their reed, you can diagnose some issues. And then similarly, you can also work on those issues, build those fundamental skills, and help the student improve with those elements of their playing through exercises on the reed. So,
okay, that makes perfect sense to me. And I have to tell you, Abby, that when I recorded with the bassoon professor, same thing. It was started with the reed. And I think we all know that double reed players have a special challenge with their reeds, and it's so, so important. So I love the way you described that. The reed is really the thing making the music.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this is just a pitch changer for the reed. It's just making the reed longer and longer and longer. Yeah.
Which is really interesting because I don't think other instrumentalists think of their instrument that way at all. You know, that trumpet player, I don't think he thinks of his mouthpiece as his instrument.
Right. And it is. And the embouchure and the lips too, because, you know, for brass, that's what's vibrating, just like the two blades vibrating here. I mean, I'm in an advantageous position. If my reed's not great, you know, I can make a new one or I can make adjustments to it. But brass players, you kind of have what you have. It's part of you, and it's not so easily altered. So there's a great advantage being an oboist. But yeah, first things first is we've got to start with the reed. Anytime I work with young students, that's the first thing I want to hear from them. Before I even hear them play a note in the oboe, I'll ask them, crow the reed for me. So a crow is a specific sound. We're taking the whole reed inside of the embouchure. So the whole reed will vibrate freely inside the oral cavity without being dampened by the lips, like when we play. So this is a playing position here on the lip. And then here's a crow position. So I think, especially for students, the more sounds we have, the better. And here's why. If they're using enough air, because they might only have one sound like this, but it could be because they're not using enough air. So then if you hear one sound, the first thing you should ask is, use more air, put a crescendo on that. Let's hear, if you add more and more and more air, do you get more and more sounds like this? Or does it just stay, no matter how much air they try to use, does it just stay? Here's what we learn. If we hear one sound, that means that only the tip of the reed is vibrating. If we hear two sounds, the tip and the body are vibrating, the whole reed. And so that's why I would say, for a student, the noisier the crow, probably the better, especially the younger they are, because that just shows that the reed is vibrating freely and comfortably, and that they have the possibilities that they need. If they're just hearing that one tiny little sound and you feel like they're using enough air, then that's a reed that's going to be tight, resistant, stiff. It's not going to speak well for low notes. And one thing I like to tell students and band directors is that high sound in the crow is there for the stability, for the pitch, the intonation, and for the security of high notes. And that the low sounds in the crow, those are there for the response, for the comfort, for the flexibility, for even the power and dynamic range. If we have beyond that, noisier crow, noisier sound. So this is, that's the lesser of two evils in my opinion, to have ample response, because we all know what it's like to look at that sweet oboe player playing their solo, and it's so tiny and it's so soft, and you know they're trying to put out more sound, but they can't. I bet that their crow only has that one sound.
Right. And is there anything really more delicious than that big, deep, rich, chocolatey oboe sound that can be made?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the opposite of what you're describing. It's so wonderful. And we all love that sound.
Yeah. So let's talk about making like that beautiful tone, because even, and like I said, I would err towards that the crow goes beyond those 2 octave Cs, the high and the low C, and that it would even have extra sounds. I think that's even better. You know, I have those octave Cs and there's also some other extraneous noises, but that's fine. I can work with that in a way that that I can't work with if I'm really giving enough air. So one thing that's going to help your students play with a more mature tone, and this is the only way I've ever been able to convince students to buy into this. It's not a because I said so. Students know that they should play on the tip of the reed, but it comes across as a because I said so. But here's why. Okay, if I am crowing, that's the foundation of my tone when I have so much reed in and it's not being dampened, versus this one clean, organized sound. And so I'll demonstrate to students, here, listen what that sounds like on the oboe. So not in a full crow position, but if I take a lot of reed and if I go that direction, I literally can't control. I can't cushion, I can't dampen at all. Everything's just vibrating freely with no bumper buddies, no guardrails. But if I stay with the reed on rather than in, then I can really round out the sound and cushion it more. The problem with students is they're not used to being here. And one reason for that is when they were a young player, they learned that they could take a little more reed and they wouldn't have to blow as much, because we all know air is pitch. Air is pitch. And so when you're young and you're not blowing fast enough, you're learning to get your air up to speed. If you're a good student, you might notice you can't do that yet and you're flat. So what do? You take more reed to fix that pitch. So a lot of students, good students with good ears, learn early on that they can fix that pitch issue that they're hearing by taking more reed rather than by developing blowing more. So it's always a habit for young students that they're taking too much reed. And you can encourage them, heavy arms. Have some heavy arms. Let's really feel like the weight of the oboe is on the arms, and so that it's coming out more, that we're more encouraged to be on the tip. You can tell them, hey, every time you have a breath or a rest, reset on the lip rather than in the mouth. But it's hard. I mean, habits die hard. So what I find helpful is this very inexpensive gel pencil grip. I got these from Target in like a package of like 20. I find the gel ones are a really good length. The foam ones are longer. So what I do with students is I'll tell them, hey, during your warm-ups or when you're practicing your scales or when you guys are doing daily drill in band, ask your band director if you can use this. Okay, so this, like bumper buddies with bowling, is just going to make it so that you can't mess up. You're not going to throw any gutter balls. So what we always do is cork end through first. Obviously, the reed is fragile, so we don't want to lead it through with the most fragile part of the reed. So we always go through cork end first. I try and squeeze and hold both of these things together. And I'll put in just a little bit first and not push down all the way, because this is easier to turn and make adjustments if I haven't put so much in. So I'll look down and see if the flat of the reed is aligned with the central nature of all of these primary keys. And if it looks good, then I'm squeezing and pushing down. And I might lift again, never past the end of the reed, squeeze the thread, the cork part of the reed through the squishy pencil grip and push down. Now what I have is an opportunity to negotiate with the student, because I say, now you know you're supposed to play on the tip of the reed, right? And they say, yeah. And I just demonstrated. You agreed it sounded better, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, you've got exposed here not only the tip, but also the heart. And what students don't realize is really how much runway of the reed that their embouchure takes up. And so a student who has a fuller embouchure, I'll shave some of this away. I'll take a razor blade. I'll cut a little bit of this pencil grip away if they need more space. But hopefully what we're seeing is something like that they're left in this position where it can only be on and it can't really be in, so that we stay on the tip of the reed. And if they start pushing, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel that this gel pencil grip is pushing a little bit. If they're pushing a lot, they might end up making a little mark, but it's fine. It's a gel pencil grip. It's not going to hurt them. It's going to increase their awareness of like, oh, and it's also going to help convince them like, I can be there and play the oboe. I can be out here on the tip. And that's what's going to lead to a more mature sound, because they're not allowing the foundation of the tone to be all those noises. They're keeping the foundation of the tone this organized sound.
Okay, am I loving this? Wow, that is fantastic. So not only are you describing exactly what we need to be watching out for and reminding of our students, I love the heavy arms thing, very cool.
Yeah.
But also now here's a tool to help them find that spot and learn that confidence, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I got these from Target. You can also get packages of these on Amazon, but I think it's very important that they're the gel ones. But trust yourself. If that student's embouchure is fuller and it looks like they need more space, give them more space. What's most important is just that their resting position would be showing that the reed is on and not in. And that comparison, and you can even ask your students, hey, play with as much reed as possible. Listen to what it sounds like. Okay, now play with staying on the tip of the reed. Ask them, which sound do they prefer? They have a good ear. They have good taste. They've heard recordings. And students are always enticed, like, hey, do it this way. It sounds more mature. It sounds more professional. That's always a better sell to them than like, this is the right way. It's because I said so. You got to do it. I think when they really understand, that this is the instrument, it's the foundation of the tone, and they can understand how that impacts their tone and how they're in control of that, I think it makes a big difference. And even a reed that's not so great and noisy can be made to sound quite nice. And so that's why I'll always lean toward easier, more responsive reeds with students.
Okay, and this is such great information because you are explaining exactly what I was hoping you would, Dr. Held, which is that, like, here's something I can do to help the students, and here's something I need to know. There's a tendency for young oboe players to want to put too much reed in for all the reasons you've described, and then there are tools and reminders that we can use to help them. And I especially love the idea of letting them use their ears, and they can tell, that sounds better, right?
Right. That's what we're doing after all. We're not just, guiding students and teaching them and sharing our knowledge, but we should be giving them the opportunities to listen and analyze and have a creative voice as well. And I think that they always appreciate that.
Yeah, so this is a great place to start because I knew we were going to start with the read, but what you've done is you've made it very practical, something that I can do even if I'm not great playing the oboe myself. I can understand this basic concept of
Hmm.
where the reed is placed, too
Hmm.
much in the mouth, all of that. It's really great. Okay, I loved that.
It just, and it just trains the new position, like braces or something. It takes the thinking out of it because as much as they try to reset and reset and reset, the old habits die hard. So it takes the thinking out of it. And like I said, I'll ask students, you don't have to play with it all the time, but use it during daily drill. Use it when you're warming up in your practice session, and just to kind of bring that awareness back. And what's so funny is my students will, whether the students at high school level or here at the collegiate level, they kind of pretend like they don't like it. Like, Dr. Held grounded me to my read friend. This is what I call it, their read friend. Oh yeah, I got grounded to my read friend this week. But they kind of love it. It kind of in a way like makes it fun, and they learn from it.
So you found a way to make it fun so that it doesn't seem like you've messed up and here's some penalty, you have to do this. So how
Yeah.
do you make it fun and not a penalty?
Well, I think because they have this tool, I think it helps make it like, okay, it's an experiment, right? And the thing is, when we ask students to try something, even if we're just like, hey, try that same thing with a crescendo, they might mess up, right? Because they're focusing on different things. They're always self-conscious. They don't want to sound bad. And I feel like with something that's so physical like this, they kind of know like, okay, I'm experimenting with this. I might not sound my normal way. But it kind of gives them like permission to just like explore and try in a way that's like very apparent to them.
Yeah, I like that. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay, what a great tool. All right,
Yeah.
good. Great place to start. All right, so what's the next thing you want me to know?
Next thing I want you to know is, that was in the oboe, but if we're working on improving our current skills, not just tone or anything, or the fundamentals of where to place the reed, we should still be working on the reed. I actually still see now and then band directors telling their students to pull or push the reed for pitch. And so I'm here with the good news that we don't do that. And let's talk about the why. We talked about the why for the students. Let's talk about the why for the band directors. The oboe is continuously conical. Okay. And so that means it's going from smaller to larger. And that's even happening with the staple of the reed. Let's see. I'm sure I have a staple laying around. I do. Okay, so here's a staple. This is what the reed is tied onto. I label mine. That's just me being neurotic. Okay, so
Wait, how do you label them? Like for the dates or something?
yeah, so I have some different brands of staples. So I want to know that this is a Stevens number 2, 47 millimeter. And then I label it with a number 2, just in case I have multiple reeds in my case that are pink. Then I can know more easily, like, it was the pink one, that's number 11. That's the one I'm using.
Makes perfect sense. And it seems like a very oboe thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're organized people, usually very type A, aren't we?
And then you'd have to be for everything you're describing. So anyway, keep going. I'm loving this.
Yeah. So you can see on the staple, it's larger at the bottom where the reed gets plugged in, and smaller at the top. There we go. That's a little better. It's also oval shaped at the top, which helps facilitate tying the cane on because the cane is more of that shape. So what scenario that results in is this continues that conical shape of the bore with the reed on, right? And so if we were to push or pull, the reed should always be all the way in, right? But if we were to say, you're sharp, pull the reed, what's happened now is there is a disruption in that continuous conical nature of the bore. Now there's like this chamber that's like wider suddenly. And whereas it might resolve some of the overall pitch issues that are being heard, it's going to cause more issues in tone, and just acoustically, you could get some multiphonics on certain notes. If a student's pitch is really, really that bad, especially if they tend to be high, I would recommend investing in these. These are called tuning rings. They're popular in Europe because, of course, organs in every city are tuned a little differently. So these tuning rings come in 1, 2, and 3 millimeters. And what they'll do is they will fill in what would otherwise be that gap that I'm talking about. And it's really quite simple. They drop right in, and then to get them out when you swab, they come right out. So they won't get stuck or anything. It seems a little scary, but you just drop it directly in. So this could be a good quick fix if contest is just around the corner. No one's gonna have a miraculous improvement and playing down to pitch. The reed that student's playing on is probably their favorite. So if it's an issue of sharpness, then you could have some of these tuning rings on hand to just save the day. But other than that, the skill that's needed to resolve the pitch issues is all here. So what I'm doing is I'm manipulating, rolling, always with the lip, so I'm never frozen and moving without. Rolling the reed with the lip, in or out. That's one thing that's happening. Adjusting my air speed. We all know air is pitch. So more air, higher pitch. Slower air, lower pitch. And voicing as well. Ooh for low, E for high. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. So when we combine all those things, we have what we need to be able to adjust pitch so that oboes and flutes are playing together. Your oboe's pitch is soaring. So you can say, okay, we need to roll out or lower voicing for that note. And the exercises that we can be doing on the reed to help develop these skills can be something as simple as just matching pitch. The range of the reed, by the way, is A flat to C. Some students will be able to play lower than A flat, but maybe not all. It just depends on the flexibility of the reed. No one should play higher than C because the reed is built to crow a C. So crowing is when we're already all the way in, all the way up. And if we were to play any higher than that, that would mean biting. So I'm starting here at the lowest pitch. Relaxed, ooh. I would say younger students, maybe beginners, 6th or 7th grade, they might only be able to get to the B flat or the B. Again, they're still learning how to move their air that fast. So I don't worry too much about pitch with the young students because, like I said, it usually results in them taking that shortcut of taking more reed.
This is fascinating. I like the fact that you, with your reed and your embouchure, can control the pitch so dramatically.
Yeah.
Like I think that's more than, I'm trying to think of any other instrument. Maybe the trombone slide. That's like a big tuning slide. But you know what I mean? Like, so this is a skill that oboe players need to learn. And none of this you're talking about, I am not supposed to tell them to adjust that reed in or out of the instrument like other instruments. That is not how it works here.
Correct. Yeah, the reed should always be all the way in. I have a good eye for the proportions. Sometimes I'll go out to a high school or a junior high and I can see that the reed is pulled. And so I'll just say, hey, bring that down all the way. So yeah, it all needs to come from here. And if you're a band director who's a brass player and you're like, gosh, I just don't know how I can help these oboe players, you know exactly how. You can be trying to find an equivalent of these lip slurs and all these buzzing exercises that you would do on your instrument for the oboe. Make sure they fit from A flat to C. For instance, you might be doing buzzing exercises in a sort of Remington style. And this is also not just a great way to develop that student's flexibility here, but also their ear, right? If you're asking, which is so necessary. The oboe is extremely flexible so that they could start to develop an ear for these intervals. And they know them, they hear them. They're doing them on their daily drill as well, or as their warm-ups with the band. And so to then try and find that all right here, like a trombone slide or like the string
Right.
with the violin, right? With finding where do those notes live right here.
Wow. So this explains why oboe players, and I would say French horn players, really have to be students with a good ear, tend to be a certain kind of musician, right? Because they have such a responsibility to find those pitches.
Yeah, and this is maybe taking like 100 steps back, but I'm so glad you bring that up because I would not put a student on oboe who can't match pitch or bassoon. You might be surprised to learn that even for undergraduate auditions at Ohio State, kind of like the secret, not secret pop quiz that we do with them, I don't really need to hear sight reading, but I will go and hit a few notes on the piano and ask if they can match it from humming. Wow. And it surprises me when a student can. Wow, like gotten this far. But students really need to have a good ear to play the oboe. It's an extremely flexible instrument. And anatomy, voicing, the way you use your air, reeds, you get a different reed source, you might have to make some adjustments. Reeds are so personal. So I always, when I'm out at schools helping band directors with that placement day or even like a conversion day, that's the first thing I do is I ask students if they can match pitch. And I really want to see that a student can do that. If I'm trying to coach them through, okay, start too low and elevator up and try and stop when you arrive, if we're having to work for that, it's going to be hard for them. The oboe is going to be quite a challenge. Even once the reed is in the oboe, you can practice these sort of matching exercises. For instance, here's that C on the drone again. If I finger a C, but start too low on purpose and then practice coming up, I can practice having flexibility and understanding where the center of the pitch is. This sort of gliss exercise. And I think it's a really great exercise if there's a specific note in band that you're trying to tune. Hey, yeah, that C that you're playing with the flutes, it just sounds really off. Maybe ask your student to start too low. And the reason I would say ask them to start too low is because that's usually coming from a place of more relax and less tension. And then asking them to come up, encouraging them to come up with rolling, with voicing, with air, but always open. We don't ever want to come down on the reed. I will always hear my band director from middle school saying, don't pinch the reed, don't pinch the reed. And boy, it drove me crazy. But what do you think I was doing? I was pinching the reed.
Which, as you said, works in the initial stages,
right.
And those students are desperate to want to sound good and match everybody.
Yeah.
But it's very detrimental, clearly, that they're not learning the right things to do for the oboe.
Right. You'll get tired more quickly. Your dynamics will be limited, and your sound will be smaller, so shortcuts are shortcuts for a reason.
Yeah, and right? I'm not sure pinching is actually good for any instrument now that I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure that's ever a plus or for any of us on no matter
Yeah.
what we're playing. Okay, great information. I loved that. And that's very helpful for me to understand that concept and how that works.
Hmm.
Gosh, I hate to say it, oboists, but like there seems to be no reason why you aren't in tune all the time because you have this flexibility. I know that's not fair,
Really
but
do. We really have so much flexibility. Absolutely. I agree.
cool. All right, good. So anything else that you want me to know?
One more thing I want you to know, again, another fundamental issue, something as simple as holding the oboe and the hand position. Ideally, we'll see something like this, right? Where the fingers are approaching the instrument very perpendicularly. The thing is we've got these side keys here, and there's a temptation to want to be able to get to them in a way that's like not trusting that you could get there otherwise. So I see this a lot of times with these very diagonal shaped fingers. Sometimes it even results in this very broken wrist shape. So, I mean, just as an over exaggeration, I'm seeing things like this from young students very often. So, one thing that I would recommend is everything, wherever you think the problem is a few steps back. So if you think, oh gosh, my students' fingers are crazy, like they're diagonal, the problem's not the fingers, right? It's further back. The problem's like the wrist, the thumbs, right? So we want these wrists that are straight. So I always start by having the student hold the oboe straight out so that their wrist is both flat, not doing this, okay? Flat, and that it is straight, that it's not kind of waving left or right. This is a very three-dimensional thing. Sometimes I just lead students through like, let's see all the ways our wrist can move right now, right? Like let's turn the doorknob, let's bend down, let's bend up, let's go left, let's go right. Like the wrist is amazing, okay? So we want to just be straight out and see that the wrists can be flat and straight, and look at how nice those fingers look. And then we just bring it to us. That needs a double check though. We need to make sure that the thumbs are anchored in a good position. I want you to notice that when my fingers approach the oboe perpendicularly, my thumbs are a little bit diagonal. Diagonal thumbs, perpendicular fingers. Now, watch this. It's a temptation to have perpendicular thumbs, okay? To be like that, to hang right on the thumb rest, parallel to the floor, perpendicular to the oboe. But when my thumbs are perpendicular, my fingers are then diagonal. And this really causes an issue for trying to reach all of this. We can reach everything much better if our thumbs are diagonal, and it gets our wrists in the right location and keeps everything within a much more central reach when we do that. So
does that have something to do with like fear of dropping the instrument and like how strong my thumb is? Is any of that for a young player in the mix there?
Yeah, 100%. And also, beginner oboes are never good instruments. And so students are squeezing, trying to get everything on the instrument to seal and close. And so they're just learning tension from the beginning. This note only comes out when I do this. And so they're really gripping. There's that fear that they're going to drop it. There's also just the kind of, they've been conditioned, unfortunately, that sound and response goes better when I do this, because oboes are just one of the hardest instruments to keep in good maintenance. And especially a student oboe, a beginner oboe that's not as well made, those aren't going to hold the adjustments as well. So that annual maintenance that you're getting for it, it's going to go out. But sometimes, to help students overcome that fear that you're talking about, we can talk about triangles are the strongest shape known to mankind, right? Bridges are made out of triangles because they've got to connect from here to here and allow people to go across. So we've got a really wonderful triangle when we play the oboe. We have the thumb under the thumb rest on the back of the instrument. We have this first finger here, and on the other side of the triangle, the same side as the thumb is on, I guess this is a better way to see it. So on the back of the instrument, our embouchure. So we have these 3 points of contact. If I take away my embouchure, the oboe is going to go forward, right? If I don't have my first finger, also, that's not going to keep it down on my embouchure. If I don't have my thumb involved, then that can't balance against the embouchure. So I wouldn't do this with a beginner, but I mean, a student who's been playing the oboe for a year or more and has a little bit of comfort with it, you could have them hover the bell above their knees and say, what would happen if you just kind of feel like you're only really carrying the weight of the instrument with the right hand thumb and the left hand first finger? Because this finger here is down for every note on the oboe except for one. It's either down and covered or down and vented for every single note on the oboe. Trivia question for your students. Which note does it come up for? It's high C sharp. High C sharp, D flat.
Interesting. That is really interesting. So, and again, tension is not anybody's friend.
No.
Right? I mean, unless it's maybe the corners of your embouchure in certain stuff, but even then you don't want it to be,
Right. Even then you don't want it to be, because also if we want our corners to come in, we have to open. So if I'm not even thinking about bringing my corners in, but I'm thinking I'm going to keep my lips closed and I'm going to open and drop my jaw. Well, my corners just came in.
Yeah.
And there's no tension there. I'm not using muscles to say corners come in. So again, if we just focus on the positive thing, let's be open, right? Staying open, which is free of tension, naturally your corners are going to come in rather than trying to force them to come in. And it would be really hard to try and get them to come in if you weren't making space for that by dropping your jaw.
Yeah.
Like if I stay closed, it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel right, but it just happens when you open.
Love it. Wow, such practical things. And I feel like after having this conversation, and hopefully people after watching this, that they will be like, okay, there's some things I know to watch for. I have some things to say. And of course, I feel like when you get to someone like an oboist, they really need to have, if at all possible, a great private teacher, because it's just a special kind of instrument. You know what I mean? Not that I can't help them, but right. I feel like that's in the mix if you can.
Oh, absolutely. And if for no other reason, to hear that sound on a weekly basis, the younger my students are, the more I'm playing with them. And so that student will improve so much from taking private lessons if that teacher is playing with them, playing alongside with them, in unison with them, playing duets with them, or even demonstrating. It makes such a big difference. It gives the student kind of some permission, some bravery, something to latch onto. We've all seen the benefits of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Wow. Okay. I'm super impressed, Dr. Held. This has been such great information. Anything else that you want me to know? Are we get it all covered?
I mean, we all know the Sunday school answer of more air. And I feel like we didn't talk a lot about air because I feel like that's the one thing, like band directors, they know that. They've got that. Like more air is almost never going to hurt. And it is very often part of the problem. But I kind of wanted to look deeper into maybe these things that you guys were less familiar with today. And I hope you find them helpful.
Yeah, no question about it. Okay, so Dr. Held, I have one last question for you. I didn't prepare you for this one, but I would love for you to, and you've kind of said it, but I still want to ask you anyway. Why do you love the oboe? Why do you love playing the oboe? I'd love to hear.
I love the sound. I love the sound of the oboe. And I find if I could sing, I would love to be able to sing. But I can't. I mean, we all sang for our music ed degrees. We all took sight singing and oral skills, but I wish I could truly, sing and project and just have those beautiful lines. But I don't feel like my voice allows me to do that in the way that the oboe does. And I just love the tone that it creates. And because it's such a flexible instrument, as we were demonstrating with the reed in terms of pitch, but also in terms of, even just the capability of tone, I find it to be an incredibly expressive instrument.
That was a wonderful answer. And I, as someone who's a big fan of the oboe, I think that all that's absolutely true. I think it's very expressive. And I still remember very well when I was in high school hearing like a just stellar oboist play for the first time. And I just thought that is the most amazing sound ever, because it was just so rich and dark. And as a French horn player, I loved that, because that's one of the reasons I love playing the French horn. And I feel like maybe that's why I'm simpatico with the oboe. But it is a very special sound especially when it's played by a master. Yeah,
Absolutely. There's nothing like it. It's worth all the pain that we go through. So, to be an oboe player is to be a problem solver. And that kind of incentive on the line is that love that we have for the feeling or the sound, and we're always trying to find our way through to get to that.
Well, thank you for taking time to share your expertise in this way. I loved the tips that you shared. I think a lot of people are going to benefit from it. So Dr. Held, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. And I want to say to anyone watching, if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me. Abby Yeakle Held, I have a website, www.abbyyeakleheld.com. And you can also find me on my Ohio State faculty page. I love being a resource to band directors. So don't hesitate. You wouldn't be a bother. I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, everybody, you heard it here. She is willing to offer help, and I appreciate that so much, Dr. Held. That's just wonderful. Again, thank you so much. I loved it.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Make sure you watch for all the releases in this series, and we hope you'll subscribe here at YouTube so that you don't miss a single release. Thank you for watching.
Marching Arts Education is the home of the Marching Roundtable podcast. We give you access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, podcasts, videos, interviews, and online coursework. With over 1,000 podcasts and hundreds of webinars and videos, there are hours of great professional development for you and your staff. Sign up for a membership to Marching Arts Education to get complete access to all webinars, videos, and podcasts, plus discounts on coursework. Many directors are using professional development funds through their school or boosters to make these resources available to their staff. Imagine what you could do with so many great new ideas from the top professionals in our activity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter to find out about the latest podcasts, webinars, and new content. Find all of this and sign up at marchingartseducation.com.